Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Brian with Games Under Pressure, and for the second week in a row, we're discussing Destiny. If you're a Destiny fan, this was a giant mega week for you because The Taken King has finally been released, and this is just a giant content expansion for Destiny. It is technically the start of Destiny Year 2. It brings a whole host of changes to the existing game. It adds a lot of new content, and there's a lot to discuss. And I'm joined again by my cousin, Jay Guida. Jay, you got to be happy.
Very happy.
You took off of work.
Yes,
right?
I did.
On Tuesday?
Yes, I did yesterday.
Okay. How many hours have you played so far?
Probably in the neighborhood of 8.
Okay. So you're a little bit of a newbie. You're at 1/100th of the total time that you have spent with Destiny, which is a soul-crushing 800 hours, as we discussed last week. Okay, so before we get into everything that's new in The Taken King, there are two things that we forgot to mention last week. And the first is subclasses. Jay, talk about subclasses.
Okay, well, finally, with this expansion, each class is receiving the elemental subclass that they were lacking in the vanilla game. I main a Titan, so I unlocked the Sunbreaker subclass, which is solar. Basically, the Titan finally has a good PvP class where you run around throwing flaming hammers at your foes. It is awesome.
That sounds like a normal Tuesday for me.
Oh, good heavens.
So what do you think about the subclasses? Are those good additions?
Yes, they are. The Titan badly needed a PvP subclass. The Hunter finally gets a support class with the Night Stalker. And then the Warlock, well, Warlocks were kind of OP to begin with, depending on who you ask. And now...
And by OP, you mean a possum punctuation?
No, overpowered, dude.
Oppressive potatoes.
I don't think so. Anyway, back to what we were talking about.
Overt porcupines.
No.
I'm getting close, right?
If by close you mean completely wrong, then I suppose.
All right, I'm getting close.
Okay, the Warlock is now charged with arc energy, floating around the map, shooting lightning out of their hands like Emperor Palpatine from Star Wars.
Okay.
So
this
cool.
is like a nerdy reference upon a nerdy reference. Okay, that's
basically
great. Nolan North has replaced Peter Dinklage as the voice of Ghost.
I think overall, for the better once you get used to it, Peter Dinklage had a very deep but kind of monotone voice in the vanilla game, whereas Nolan North kind of sounds like this bizarre bastard child of C-3PO and 343 Guilty Spark.
Yeah, I can hear that for sure. For sure. Do you like the change? Is it something that is welcome? I personally did not like Peter Dinklage as Ghost. I thought the performance seemed a little phoned in, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. The community is actually a little divided on this because...
Really? Because I thought he was sort of universally hated as Ghost, or am I wrong?
Originally, yes, but like all things of that nature, he's developed kind of a...
Cult following?
Cult following, yes. Yes, so if you look at all of the original dialogue, that's absolutely terrible, like We've Woken the Hive, or That Wizard Came from the Moon from the beta.
Yeah.
Yeah, he developed a cult following, and now that is gone. That is completely gone. I personally like it very much. A lot of the community, surprisingly, does not. There have been a lot of, please restore Dinklebot, please.
Like petitions and shit, trying to get the White House to respond.
Yeah, even though Bungie has gone on record saying that petitions on their forums do not necessarily yield results.
Yeah. Well, you know, and I can see it from their perspective, too, because Peter Dinklage is going to be an actor that's, number one, very difficult to get into the studio because he has other obligations.
Game of Thrones, yeah.
Yeah, like giant obligations. Pixels, which was a movie of the year. But no, so he has other things to do. It's going to be difficult to get him into the studio, and especially if we're looking at a release calendar of 2 expansions a year.
Indeed.
Right?
Indeed.
So that's going to be tough. So the move to Nolan North is, probably from a logistical perspective, a little bit easier for Bungie. And number 2, Dinklage is probably really expensive.
No kidding, probably. Which I would guess by the vanilla game. Again, you in the second DLC, The Dark Below, he only had 1 line of dialogue in the PlayStation exclusive strike, The Undying Mind. In House of Wolves, he had no dialogue.
Oh boy, okay. I didn't know that. So he has been... They've telegraphed this for a while, in other words.
I would think so, yes.
Okay. So with that out of the way, let's dive right into it. Jay, give me an overview of what the Taken King actually is.
Okay, the Taken King is the first big expansion of Destiny starting off year 2. Basically,
$40.
$40. For that, you get the new content, you get revamped strikes, there's the new enemy type, the Taken. Basically reskinned enemies that we've already seen, but with new abilities.
Okay.
I think they're cool, but that's because, again, I've played 800 soul-crushing hours, so anything that is somewhat different is very desirable at this time.
Sure.
So
any content is good content, as far as you're concerned.
Basically. So you have the new enemy type, and then you have the new strikes also, which are more mechanically driven in terms of boss fights. The bosses actually drop your loot for you. So you don't just kill the boss, there's nothing, you go to a loading screen, and then it's like, oh, okay, I got 1 blue engram for all that effort. So that's a much welcome change.
Okay. Last week, we talked about how far out of the loop I was with Destiny. That changed.
Yes.
Over the last few days. That changed. So I got the game. I paid it's actually a pretty good deal. $60 gets you the base Destiny game, the 2 expansions plus the Taken King. So that is a pretty decent deal. You know what? Why not? I jumped into it. I played it. You and I played a few hours, 4 hours, which it doesn't really compare to your 8. But you know what? For me, that was a lot. So that was a lot of Destiny. It's the most Destiny I've played in probably 8 months, 9 months. So I'm happy with that. But we played through the story. We played through the entirety of the story. My impression, and again, I take this for what it's worth. I didn't play the 2 expansions before the Taken King, so I don't really have a lot of perspective. But I thought I'd do my homework. And provide a little bit of commentary for the podcast.
Oh, the effort was real.
The effort was really real. It was very, very real.
As was the struggle.
As was the struggle. I just got sick of doing everything last night. We were playing through, and damn it, Jay just kept dying, and I was struggling to make it through. I was just carrying dead weight.
What he means to say is that when the Taken King dropped, he was still a level 20 with year 1 blues.
Yeah.
No idea what he was doing. He originally turned on his console and was so confused by everything.
Yeah.
He shoots me off a text going, Jay, get on so you can help me. I have no idea what I'm doing.
I literally booted the game up, and I walked around for like 5 minutes, and I thought that what Bungie would have done is make it a little bit easier for somebody who is a lapsed Destiny player like I am to get back into it. But I just walked in, and it was like there was so much bullshit everywhere. It was like currency here and this currency, and you need these marks and you need to do this. And I just got so overwhelmed. I literally turned off the console and texted you saying, you need to help me. I'm completely lost. I'm walking around this game completely blind. And you did. You did really help me through it. But we played through the story. And in every single story mission, I was behind the recommended level by 2. I was 2 levels behind the recommended level in every single story mission. So Jay ended up doing most of the work. I was sort of like this cancerous legion just sort of leeching life off of him throughout the entirety of the experience. But he did help me, and we played through the story. One thing, Jay, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there seems to be a very real increase in, number one, like the set piece action. So we're talking like Uncharted things with things exploding and it just seems a little bit like more of a tight package. And so that's one thing.
Yeah, it definitely grabbed me a little bit more. Like with Halo, for instance. Now, I'm not comparing the two, obviously, because that would just be...
Is that sort of heretical in the forums? Is that frowned upon? Any mention of Halo?
Yes and no. We still have Halo fanboys on the Bungie forums, and that just leads to all kinds of shenanigans. But overall, though, with Halo was very set-driven, very narrative-heavy.
Yeah.
And this new expansion, The Taken King, takes a new direction with that and is much better than Vanilla Destiny. Vanilla Destiny just kind of drops you in the middle of nowhere, and you're like, what do you mean you've been looking for me all this time? What do you mean I've been dead? What the hell is going on? Who are you? Mm-hmm. And this kind of helps with that. There's much more dialogue, many more cutscenes. In the original game, there were really only 2 standalone cutscenes with basically the Queen of the Reef,
right,
which you see in the first cutscene of The Taken King. But now there's a whole bunch of stuff with Cade, for instance. They made Cade...
The unicorn.
The unicorn.
The unicorn.
They made Cade excellent. Classic Nathan Fillion. Much more enjoyable to listen to. Much better.
Was he in the previous 2 expansions or no?
Cade was there since the beginning, but he really didn't do much. He just stood at the table in the Vanguard Underwatch and was just basically... his best line of dialogue in the original game was, "Hey, take me with you."
That's really creepy.
Because he hates being there, because the story of his character is that he got roped into Vanguard duty against his will when he'd rather be in the field doing field work.
Gotcha. Okay. So the cutscenes are really well done in this. That's something that I was shocked by, because I thought that the cutscenes in the vanilla Destiny were just so-so. They were ho-hum. They didn't really have a lot of personality.
They didn't grab you.
No, not at all. And the characters came across as thin.
Very
and
thin.
barely there. And with this, there's personality. And we talked about a little bit privately about the commercials, the Destiny commercials, and how it always seemed like there was so much more personality in the Destiny commercials than there were in the actual game.
Yeah, Bungie, hire those guys to do your writing for you.
And with this, at least, it feels like they're injecting some of that personality into the cutscenes. It feels like there's a little bit of life there. Like, it's not some vapid void where, you know, you're just throwing in these character amalgamations and you're expecting to get something out of it. I mean, there's some sharp writing in there.
Yes.
There's some personality, and it feels like a dramatic leap in quality over the vanilla Destiny.
Something that somebody like myself can definitely appreciate and confirm. A major leap in quality.
And you knew everything that was going on. I was just sort of like,
like, what the hell is this? I was just
making fun of everything.
Yeah, like, what the hell is this? What are these marks that I need? And I was telling you that's one of the way they streamline the games is by consolidating the 2 currencies into one, and it still kind of threw you for a loop because you like the original game, but not to the point of grinding and endlessly like I did.
Right.
So you didn't get to the point where you had saved up the titanic amount of marks required to actually purchase a legendary...
Exactly.
From the Vanguard or whatever faction you would have decided on, because not only did you need the marks, you had to level that faction by doing bounties and patrols up to at least rank 3 to earn the right to purchase from them.
Sure.
So
yes. Yes. Okay, I don't know what any of that meant, but yes. So
Yes.
So let's back up. Let's talk about the story, okay? As a longtime Destiny fan, did you like the story?
Yes, I did. Again, major leap forward from the vanilla game. It starts out, basically, the Vanguard have intercepted a transmission from Phobos, one of the moons of Mars. The Cabal are broadcasting on all frequencies a distress signal. And if you remember from the main game, Cabal are basically 800-pound space turtles, highly militarized. So it's kind of like, what the hell is going on that this very formidable foe, this faction, is screaming out for help? You land on Phobos, and you see them being decimated, and you have no idea at first what's going on.
And what is going on?
What's going on is the Taken King has arrived in our system.
Now, the Taken King is Oryx.
Oryx.
And Oryx is the father of Crota.
Yeah, father of Crota. He is basically the chief of the hive gods in their pantheon.
Okay. We're not going to get into spoiler territories here because I don't want to ruin it for anybody who has yet to go through the game. But were you fine with the way the things wrapped up?
It wrapped up. It was a little unsatisfying for me, but I know why, because they're setting it up for the raid.
For the raid, which is released in 2 days.
On Friday, yes.
Okay. So the story, the production values seemed like they jumped a dramatic amount. I was really happy to see that. What else? What about you played a Nightfall last night?
Actually, right before I came over here.
Okay. And what was that like?
Oh my God. If anybody here, again, I'm bringing up Halo again, play through Halo any level on Legendary with all skulls on, you'll know what I'm talking about. Nightfalls at the end of this last expansion, at the end of year 2 or year 1 rather, for somebody like me, weren't that difficult.
You could just walk through them.
I ran the strikes plenty of times. Well, you couldn't just walk through them. You had to be careful, but you knew where to stand. We had a fully upgraded arsenal of different elemental guns, basically, to use for whatever the Nightfall threw at you. It wasn't that hard to solo it. Mm-hmm. And Nightfalls are basically the hardest content outside of the raid to accomplish. And now I log on just to see what's going on with the bounties and whatnot for today. I get a message immediately from my friend Code, and he's like, get on. We need your help with a Nightfall. And I'm thinking to myself, why me? Why this soon? Because for Nightfall, you need a recommended light level of 280 currently. I'm at 260, so I am under level, and my weapons still are not that good. But they wanted me in there for some moral support, so I did. I ended up pulling my weight, saving the day. We got through it. It took about an hour, which was much longer than we thought it would. But yeah, there are more enemies. All the enemies have overshields. And they're over leveled on a Nightfall. They're at level 42 now, and the maximum level you can get to is 40. But then you get light level 2, which makes up for that. But none of us have really gotten to that point yet. Again, except my buddy Poncho, who has a light level of over 290.
Which is pretty ridiculous at this point, right?
Within 24 hours of the game dropping, okay. I don't know how he got that far.
I mean, come on here. I'm like light level 169.
Yes.
So hold the phone because the powerhouse is here. Okay?
Well, I suppose in my group of friends, I'm only okay. I'm a good teammate. I know what to do, but I'm not a beast. These guys are ridiculous with the things they do.
All right. Let's talk about the content that's here. One of my problems with the original Destiny was a dearth of content. It felt like you were doing the same things over and over and over. The scenery didn't change that much. I mean, you went from the moon to Mars and things like that, and that felt like it was different. But the day-to-day grind, it felt like you were doing the same things over and over and over. In my experience with the Taken King, and granted, it's very limited experience, but my experience with the Taken King, it feels like they haven't significantly addressed that issue yet.
They have somewhat. I get what you're saying with it, and I do agree with you somewhat, but...
Because one of my big problems with the game, I mean, it's the same enemies, right? They're just reskinned. It's the same thing. It's all the Vandals and all that, but just they're translucent and they can sort of disappear and
they have new abilities.
They have new abilities too, but it feels like the same old. And I guess my disappointment, not to compare it to Halo again, but I guess my disappointment stems from the fact that with Halo, from Halo like 1 through ODST and through Reach actually, one of my disappointments with that game was you were still battling the Covenant. It felt like you were always battling the same enemies. And with Destiny now, here a year on, it feels like you're still battling those same enemies.
People that are loyal to the game would disagree on the smaller points to try to overthrow your argument in that there are 4 basic enemy factions, and now with the Taken 5, where each faction has their own setup. Where with Halo, you had the Grunts, the Elites, you had the Hunters, you had...
Brutes.
The Brutes, yeah, we can't forget the Brutes, the giant monkey people. So they expanded on that, but again, the enemies are similar enough to where it doesn't feel like they're that different. So I get what you're saying with that. The Taken are a huge step forward for me in that, again, it's something that's not wholly the same.
Right.
But again, having played as much as I have, I appreciate this a little bit more.
I'm sure you do. Yeah, I'm sure you do, for sure. There's a new area, the Dreadnought.
Yes.
Talk about that a little bit.
Oryx's capital ship in orbit around Saturn. It
sort of looks like a giant Lego block.
Yeah, it does kind of look like a Lego block that H.R. Giger played with.
Yeah.
But it's a very large patrol area. It's easy to get lost inside because there are nooks and crannies everywhere. There are things that are not immediately obvious. There are hidden chests all throughout the Dreadnought, and you need keys to get into them, and you need to do certain things to get into them that are not obvious at all. So Luke Smith had gone on record as saying that the Dreadnought is basically what they were going for, an inscrutable, loot-filled fortress, to quote him. And it's definitely
you got this shit ready to go, man. Quoting and, oh, man. Well, somebody is prepared.
Well, I can't forget that guy, Luke Smith. The SOB still owes me a steak dinner from the Halo days.
He does.
Yeah, no kidding.
So that new area seemed pretty cool. It had a really neat art style to it.
Very much so. Very reminiscent of the initial Hive areas on the moon, but the Dreadnought is older, it's larger. The story behind it is it's older than mankind itself. It's existed since before the Earth was formed. And that's how old the Hive are. That's how old Oryx is. And he is here to take revenge on you for what you did to his son. Mm-hmm. So going back to the Dreadnought, though, very good. It's a great place to patrol in also. They came out with new patrols, actually, in this expansion. One of them, you actually thought it was kind of annoying, and it kind of was because you didn't have your Sparrow with you, but the checkpoints where you have to race to the different pillars of light. Mm-hmm. So that's a different checkpoint, or not checkpoint, that's a different patrol that you can do now. There are a few other patrol beacons that I've seen that I haven't done just yet because I was just going to check them out, and again, I got roped into doing the Nightfall before I came over, which I was totally unprepared for. But
there's a mission in this game that stands out to me as something that is wholly unique and completely different from every other mission in Destiny, and I'm not going to give anything away, but you are basically invisible. Each of the enemy, you have to stealth your way through this level to get to the end. Each of the enemies, as they're walking, has sort of a perimeter to them, a red perimeter, so that you know when you're within smell distance, basically, of these enemies. And I thought that was really, really neat. And I'll tell you what, for any subsequent Destiny expansions, I do hope that they include more unique missions like that, because that was a highlight of playing through the story missions, was something that was so radically different than anything. Like, you don't have, you can't like double or triple jump. You're very limited in your movement. You're very limited with like weapons and things like that. And it felt completely disempowering.
Yes.
But at the same time, it felt very fun.
Yes, something completely different. The stealth element was actually a big surprise for me. When it first happened, I was like, oh, God, this is not going to be good, because I'm not very good at stealth games. I'm more of a shoot first, ask questions later sort of guy. But this was actually very, very good. And as I found out later, when you get to this part of the campaign, it's not just getting through this area without being detected. You also can't run. Mm-hmm. If you run, that also drops your invisibility. So you have to painstakingly navigate your way through basically a minefield of Hive enemies to get to the end.
It was really neat.
Yes, it
really
was.
Neat.
Very cool.
I like to see them experimenting a little bit. And I don't want to make it seem like that hasn't been done in any game ever, because it has. But in terms of Destiny, everything that Destiny has been and probably will be, it was a nice little change of pace that I hope they continue. Let's talk a little bit about multiplayer. And there are some very significant changes in multiplayer.
Yes, there are 2 new game modes. The first being Rift. I think we touched on this a little bit last week, where basically on the map, there's a spark of light that charges. The objective is to grab the spark and run it into the enemy player's rift. Again, kind of a marriage between Capture the Flag and Griffball.
Mm-hmm. From Halo again.
Mm-hmm. And it's very good in theory, but as I played a few more matches of this new game type, I realized that it's, depending on the people you play with, it just becomes a snipe fest.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, the opposite. They'll just camp out in their little area, and as soon as anybody gets near the spark, just headshot after headshot after headshot. It's super annoying, so you've got to be careful there, which I don't think is the way Bungie intended it to be, but that's
so that'll probably be balanced in a later patch.
I would like to hope so. Like, once you grab the spark, there's a certain time limit that you have to run it into the enemy player's rift. It'd be nifty if once the spark is ignited, that there's a certain time limit that somebody has to grab it and not just camp, for instance. Okay. That'd be good. That would be good. The other new game type is called Mayhem, where everybody has their super pretty much all the time.
That sounds interesting. It almost sounds like Fiesta from Halo, where everybody respawns with a completely random weapon. And in this case, it's not random, but it produces the same sort of mayhem and chaos.
Exactly. Exactly a name, Mayhem. Because it's just nonstop chaos.
Do you like it?
You're either on top or you're just constantly getting killed. I found that hunters using Golden Gun, as you call it, the magic bullets.
Magic bullets. That was my name for it. The magic bullets.
Magic bullets seem to be good because they can shoot. They can hit with their special ability from a long way away, whereas Titans previously just had their Titan Smash.
Right.
Warlocks have their Nova Bomb. Titan Smash is very limiting. Nova Bomb has good distance, but Golden Gun, you can shoot somebody from across the course if you're careful. So that seems to be the dominant thing currently in that game type. We'll see if that gets balanced out. Obviously, people that main that character type are not going to want it because they're on top. I wouldn't either. But it's definitely, again, a change of pace. It's just absolute chaos.
Okay. Let's talk about weapons.
Oh boy, very, very nebulous here.
Yeah. Now, you were on record last week as saying that you weren't a super giant fan of how they handled weapons, and you feel like a little bit slighted.
A little bit. Again, I had mentioned previously.
Is that still the case after playing 8 hours of The Taken King?
A little bit, because I have all of these maxed weapons from year one that are no longer good. Yes, I realize they're trying to push the new content, which is, you know, what they do to keep you interested, but also at the same time, I had all these amazing weapons that are still okay with year one content, but I'm not playing the game right now for year one content. That's not why I'm doing it. All year one weapons are capped at a damage of 170.
Now, you said something earlier tonight that sort of shocked me, and perhaps this is not going to come as a surprise to these longtime Destiny fans like yourself, but if you're not a big fan of Destiny, what's interesting is that you can't earn year 2 legendary gear from completing year 1 raids.
No, you cannot.
And I understand the business decisions behind that. That makes sense to me. But from a logistical, like day-to-day perspective, what you're doing by that is what you're doing through that is basically forcing people to buy the expansion, and you're making it so that running those raids, which in your case have been very replayable,
You've
played them many, many times, you're sort of locking out new players from that.
Indeed, indeed. Even in games such as WoW, and again, I'll go on record here as also saying Destiny, to all the fanboys out there, is pretty much only an MMO when that line of thinking justifies Bungie's decision-making capabilities as far as this game goes. But I realize older weapons get left behind, but in WoW, and again, this has been told to me and shown to me because I don't really play WoW ever, that later on they added heroics to previous raids where you could go back on a higher difficulty and you would be rewarded an appropriate reward for that new difficulty.
Using the same guns, using the same weapons. Or use it like, or not the same, but the guns that you received in the latest expansion.
Yes.
So you could, using the upgraded damage, using the upgraded weapons, you could go back to some of the older raids, play them on a higher difficulty, and then get new weapons in those raids.
Yeah, I don't know about anybody out there, but if they added that, I'd be doing Vault of Glass, again, as much as I could, or Crota's End, if they introduced even year 2 equivalents. Damage-wise...
So right now, is there any reason for you personally to go back and play those?
No. I had all the raid weapons. I dismantled a few because vault space before this update was an issue. I have all the year 1 exotic weapons, which some of them are only carrying on to year 2 currently. Bungie has
there are year 2 equivalents of those same weapons.
Yes, a lot of them have been retooled. Like the Suros auto rifle was a max impact, low rate of fire auto rifle previously with max stability. Now they've decreased it to a medium impact auto rifle, and they've nerfed the stability so that it's, if you actually pull it up on the blueprints kiosk and look at it, maybe half of what it once was, which they said is what they're going for with auto rifles, like closer. But I don't want autos to get to the point where, again, we're probably going to get a little flack for this. Going back to the Halo analogy.
It's a lot of Halo. We should just have a Halo podcast. That's what we should do.
Oh, well, we might get to that at some point after a certain Halo 5 game comes out.
Please, like you're going to stop playing Destiny.
Oh,
come on.
A man can dream. A man can dream. But anyway, back to what we were saying with Halo. The ARs, if somebody was standing further away than 10 feet with an AR in Halo, you couldn't kill them. Even in Halo 4, with the range increase to ARs, they still had to be fairly close.
Right.
And now they've done that with the auto rifles, so it just doesn't rub me the right way at all. So, okay, so we were talking about weapons then. So back to that. The damage stat that you get on weapons is, I learned this throughout my last day of playing, is totally RNG based.
What does RNG stand for?
Random Number Generator.
Okay.
So basically, everything is random. You can get a purple, which is a legendary, with an attack stat of 256. Then you can do another activity, and a blue can drop, which is rare quality, which is supposed to be less, and it can have a higher attack stat. And your light level now, which is derived,
which has been revamped,
which is now basically decided by your attack and defensive stats combined, is determined by basically how much clout your weapon has and how much defense your armor has, even if the perks aren't that good. So if you get a blue that's better, you should equip that blue technically because your light level will go up. So you might have to shelve a legendary that you've been using for a while in favor of this blue.
Sort of disincentivizing
yes,
some of the older weapons.
You can, for the main quest, you get rewarded a legendary of your choosing. You picked which one? You picked the pulse rifle?
I think so.
And you couldn't yet equip it because you weren't level 40.
I beat the story at like level 35.
Yeah, yes, you did. Anyway, that brings into the picture what they call infusion, where you can break down a legendary of higher quality in that weapon slot to make the weapon you're using more powerful. Vendor weapons, if you manage to amass the ridiculous amount of legendary marks you need to get them, which are very slow to build up with how much they've gated the accrual rate of this currency, it takes forever. You're better off investing that in your armor rather than weapons. The vendor stuff you can get at level, it does 280 attack.
Okay.
The pulse rifle I got from completing the campaign does 200.
Okay.
So not that good, but I've infused it several times. The attack stat is now at 264. So it's better, but it's still not quite there yet. Mm-hmm. So all the stats on the stuff you get, regardless of the quality of the item, is random.
Okay.
And that's how, actually, reflecting on it now, that's how my buddy Poncho got as high as he is, because they farmed the Court of Oryx, which, if you don't know, is a public event that the player can instigate by offering up these runes that you find.
We found a few of those.
Yeah, at the statues just outside the Court of Oryx. Whites obviously will summon the basic enemy. The rares will summon 2 of those enemies, and then the legendary I have not yet tried.
We got a legendary, didn't we?
Yes, we did, randomly. We did. It's a very rare drop. My buddies tried to do a legendary, and they were killed basically within 10 seconds.
So what you're saying is I need to get involved and give them a little boost. So that's what you're saying, really. Let's read between the lines here.
Yeah, like
you're saying, Brian, we need your help. We need you to jump in. We need your 169 light level to get us through.
Like a diabetic needs to attack a box of sugar cubes, I suppose, yes.
Well, there you go.
A lot going on with the weapons. So the pulse I got is actually pretty good, but again, all year one weapons are currently being left behind. And then you are pretty much forced to deal with this new system, which would be fantastic if we had gotten it originally. But we did not get it originally, so yeah, we just have to make do and grind it out for the new stuff.
Okay. Strikes. Let's talk about strikes. We ran a few strikes last night. They are very slightly retooled.
Very slightly. One of the perks is, I think it's called Troop Refresh. I'd have to actually look at the screen.
Okay.
They've shuffled the enemies that you play against, and they've also added the new enemy type, the Taken, to the strikes to revamp what you have to do a little bit so it doesn't feel quite as stale, which it succeeds to a
certain extent.
To a certain extent. Probably not what they were going for, but better. Much better than it was previous.
I played Vanilla Destiny, and I ran through almost all the strikes in Vanilla Destiny, and playing this, it was like, okay, this is sort of the same thing.
Well, the 2 strikes that we did were Valis to Arik, basically the Cerberus Vey strike, which, again, was available in the vanilla game, and also the Scion Flares, which was a PSN exclusive. And again, the enemies were just retooled, but that was also available in the regular game. I had hoped that we would get one of the new strikes, but we didn't.
Yeah. What are the new strikes?
Well, one, oddly enough, is the Nightfall for this week. Basically, there's a hive called the Darkblade.
Okay.
And you have to infiltrate the Dreadnought and take this guy out. Basically, the boss itself is in this pitch black cell. You have to. It's all about situational awareness, communicating, and when you pull your ghost out, it momentarily highlights the environment around you, so you have to keep doing that to keep track of him, because if he gets close to you, one swipe with his hive sword and you're dead.
Okay.
So a lot of very exhilarating there, but so that's one of the new strikes. I'm trying to remember now because it's just I played so much this last day, everything is just kind of blurring together for me.
Have you played any of the other new strikes?
Yes, that's right, the Shield Brothers. That's what I'm forgetting. It was shown on the Bungie Twitch reveal.
Okay.
Basically, you fight two Cabal commanders that work together. One of them has a devastating close-range melee attack, and the other one has a shoulder-mounted arc cannon. And once you do enough damage to one of them retreats, the other one comes out. And when you do enough damage to them, he retreats, and they both come out, and they fight together in tandem.
Okay.
And it's far more mechanically driven than the Valis Ta'arik strike, where he's just a bullet sponge walking back and forth.
Sure.
So
that makes sense.
Yeah, it's much better that they've gotten. They're going for a more mechanics-based boss fight than just hide in this corner, do as much damage as you can without getting killed, and just keep that up for the next 15 minutes.
Okay. So we're at almost 36 minutes on this podcast.
Oh, wow.
Before we stop, before we close shop for the day, let's talk a little bit about the raid. What do we know about the raid that is coming out in 2 days?
That it's going to be level 40 only. What is it now? Poncho was telling me about it earlier. The recommended light level is 290. Very few people are going to be there. I'm not going to be there.
Are you going to attempt it anyway?
Oh boy, probably. They'll probably drag me along for it.
Again, I'm here. I'm just a phone call away
with your 169 light.
I could just go in, clean house, and you're good. You're good. I'm willing to do that for you guys.
A hive would shoot you in the ass and you'd be dead.
That's okay, because you know what? I make up for what level I don't have with heart. And jokes.
Yes, and that goes a long way when dealing with raid mechanics.
Yes.
Anybody that's been stuck on oracles in the Templar Well in Vault of Glass will know what I'm talking about.
You just need heart.
Yeah, you just need heart. By the look on your face, you have no idea what I just said.
No, not at all. I'm just like Rocky Balboa. I might not be the fastest. I might not be the strongest. But you know what? Damn it, I can take a punch, and I got a lot of heart.
Again, good for boxing. Not necessarily the best thing for first-person shooters.
It might be. Who knows? But just I'm a phone call away. So just give me a ring. I will jump in there, and I will show you guys what it be.
What
it be.
How to get it done.
Yeah.
How to bring the ruckus.
How to bring it. So are you excited about the raid?
Somewhat. I'm somewhat excited.
And we know that the Oryx is going to be the boss of the raid.
Yeah, that's going to be a pain in the ass. We're all thinking he's going to be similar to Crota, but he'll be able to fly, which is a new thing for raid bosses. That'll be horrifying. Okay. Absolutely horrifying.
So can we expect maybe next week we have a Discussing Destiny episode 3, and can we expect a few raid impressions?
We'll have to see. I'll really have to grind to get the necessary gear, and
Well, I'm sure you'll have no problem doing that, Mr. 800 Hours.
Yes, thank you for using the Mister. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So, okay, that'll about do it for this episode of Discussing Destiny. We might be back next week. We might not, depending on how hard Jay works. So it's all up to him. If there is not a Discussing Destiny episode 3 next week, you can email him. I'll put his email. No, I'm just kidding. But direct all your death threats to him. And
it could be because we did invite you along with your 169 light and your heart and your ability to take a punch, and we ended up just saying, screw it. We're not going to do this.
Possibly. That might be it.
Because in the end, we won't be able to keep up with you because you're just...
I run really fast. I can get out of situations, man.
OG here.
Last night, I revived you.
Yes, you revived me once.
I revived you once.
Yes, you revived me.
So I think that should say something about my escaping abilities. Because all of a sudden you said, holy shit, I'm down, just run away. And I think I literally hid in a closet or something. But yeah, no. So that'll about do it. Jay, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it. We might be back next week. We might not, depending on what Jay feels like. So
no pressure. No
pressure at all.
No pressure at Games Under Pressure.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. I really appreciate it. If you would be willing to, please hit that subscribe button. I appreciate every single subscription. It's through subscriptions that I am able to do what I am doing right now. So please do that. I'd really appreciate it. And we'll catch you guys next time.